From the lush valleys of the Nile to the windswept plains of the Americas, the tapestry of history is woven with threads of triumph and tragedy. Yet some figures stand out not for their contributions to art or science, but for the chilling mark they left on the world. Throughout history, some women have left a mark not just for their charm and intelligence, but for their deadly influence. Today, we explore the 10 most dangerous women in history. Their stories, often shrouded in whispers and shadowed by controversy, offer a glimpse into the darker side of human nature. In the heart of Transylvania, a land steeped in folklore and legend, lived Elizabeth Bathory. Born into nobility in 1560, she was blessed with beauty, wealth, and education, yet beneath this veneer of privilege lurked a heart consumed by darkness. Accused of torturing and murdering hundreds of young women, Bathory's legend is a gruesome tapestry of sadism and superstition. She believed that bathing in the blood of virgins would preserve her youthful beauty, a delusion that led her down a path of unimaginable cruelty. From her castle in Kaktice, Slovakia, whispers of her horrific acts began to surface. Peasants spoke of missing daughters, their fears echoing through the surrounding villages. As the body count rose, so too did suspicion, eventually reaching the ears of King Matthias II of Hungary. In 1610, a formal investigation was launched, uncovering a horrific scene within the castle walls. The investigators found young women, some dead, some clinging to life, bearing the marks of unspeakable torture. Witnesses, including members of Bathory's own staff, came forward with chilling accounts of her sadistic practices. The evidence was overwhelming, painting a picture of a woman consumed by her own depravity. Despite the overwhelming evidence against her, Elizabeth Bathory's noble lineage shielded her from the full force of the law. She was never brought to trial, but instead imprisoned within her own castle, her chambers walled up, leaving her in solitary confinement until her death 4 years later. Her story serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can fester within the human heart, hidden beneath a veneer of beauty and privilege. From the cobbled streets of Transylvania, we travel to the sun-drenched but crime-ridden streets of Medellin, Colombia. Here, amidst the burgeoning drug trade of the 1970s and 80s, rose Griselda Blanco, a name synonymous with ruthlessness and violence. Known as La Madrina, or the Godmother, Blanco was a prominent figure in the infamous Medellin cartel, responsible for trafficking cocaine into the United States. Blanco's early life was a brutal introduction to the criminal underworld. Forced into prostitution as a young girl, she developed a cunning and ruthlessness that would define her rise to power. She quickly learned the intricacies of the drug trade, establishing smuggling routes and amassing a fortune through her illicit activities. Her ambition knew no bounds, and her ruthlessness became legendary. She was linked to countless murders, her preferred methods often shocking in their brutality. She eliminated rivals with chilling efficiency, earning her a fearsome reputation that spread far and wide. Her reign of terror, however, would not last forever. In 1985, after years on the run from authorities, Blanco was captured in California. She was extradited to the United States and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Although she was later deported back to Colombia in 2004, her reign of terror had ended. Griselda Blanco's life, though cut short by an assassin's bullet in 2012, serves as a cautionary tale of ambition and brutality in the world of organized crime. The vast plains of Depression-era America gave rise to many outlaws, but few captured the public's imagination like Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow. Their exploits, romanticized in film and song, painted a picture of daring heists and a love story on the run. However, behind the romanticized facade lay a trail of violence and crime that left 9 lawmen and several civilians dead. Bonnie, a small-town girl from Texas, was instantly smitten with Clyde, a charismatic ex-con. Their love story, however, quickly spiraled into a life of crime. They robbed banks and small businesses, their exploits becoming bolder and more violent with each passing heist. Bonnie, initially portrayed as a reluctant accomplice, soon proved to be a willing participant in their spree. Photos of Bonnie brandishing weapons and posing with Clyde by their stolen car added to their notoriety, turning them into media darlings and folk heroes to some. The public was captivated by their brazen disregard for the law and their seemingly glamorous life on the run. However, their reign of terror could not last forever. In 1934, after a 2-year crime spree, Bonnie and Clyde were ambushed and killed by a posse of lawmen in Louisiana. Their deaths, as dramatic and violent as their lives, marked the end of an era. Bonnie Parker, the outlaw's sweetheart, remains a symbol of rebellion and a cautionary tale of love and crime intertwined. Our journey through the annals of history takes us to one of its darkest chapters, the Holocaust. Amidst the horrors of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the Nazi concentration camp, Irma Grese stands out for her unspeakable cruelty. Known as the hyena of Auschwitz, Grese, a young woman barely out of her teens, became the embodiment of Nazi brutality. Driven by a warped sense of duty and a thirst for power, Grese rose through the ranks of the SS, becoming a senior supervisor at Auschwitz. Her cruelty knew no bounds. She took pleasure in inflicting pain and humiliation on the prisoners, her actions driven by a chilling indifference to human suffering. Grese seemed to relish her position of power, wielding it with a chilling detachment that belied her young age. She participated in selections for the gas chambers, sending countless innocent souls to their deaths. Her reign of terror, however, would eventually come to an end. With the liberation of Auschwitz in 1945, Grese was captured and put on trial for war crimes. Despite her attempts to plead innocence, the overwhelming evidence against her, including eyewitness accounts of her barbarity, sealed her fate. At the age of 22, Irma Grese was convicted and hanged for her crimes, a stark reminder of the human capacity for evil, even in the face of unimaginable suffering. We turn our attention back to the royal courts of Europe, where power struggles and religious turmoil often had deadly consequences. Mary I, the first queen regnant of England, ascended the throne in 1553, inheriting a kingdom divided by religious strife. Her reign, however, would be defined by bloodshed, earning her the chilling moniker Bloody Mary. Mary, a devout Catholic, was determined to restore England to the Catholic faith after years of Protestant rule under her half-brother Edward VI. Her methods, however, were harsh and unforgiving. She ordered the burning of hundreds of Protestants at the stake, their deaths meant to serve as a warning to those who dared defy her religious edicts. The burnings, carried out with ruthless efficiency, sent shockwaves through England. The smell of burning flesh permeated the streets, a constant reminder of Mary's unwavering commitment to her faith and her ruthlessness in dealing with dissent. Her reign of terror, however, was short-lived. After a tumultuous 5-year reign marked by religious persecution and political unrest, Mary I died in 1558, leaving behind a legacy of bloodshed and religious intolerance. Her reign serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of religious extremism and the human cost of unwavering conviction. From the royal courts of England, we journey across the Atlantic to the American Midwest, where a different kind of darkness lurked in the seemingly idyllic countryside. Belle Gunness, a Norwegian immigrant of imposing stature and cunning charm, built a reputation as a black widow, luring men to their deaths on her isolated Indiana farm. Driven by greed and a chilling lack of remorse, Gunness placed personal ads in newspapers seeking companionship and marriage. Men, drawn to her charm and promises of a comfortable life, flocked to her farm, unaware of the fate that awaited them. One by one, they disappeared, their disappearances often attributed to accidents or their own wanderlust. Gunness, however, was not working alone. She enlisted the help of farmhands and even her own adopted children, offering them a share of her victims' possessions in exchange for their silence. Her murderous scheme, however, began to unravel when a fire consumed her farmhouse in 1908. Amidst the ashes, investigators discovered the bodies of Gunness's latest victims, including those of her own children. Gunness herself was nowhere to be found. Whether she perished in the fire or escaped to live out her days under an assumed identity remains a mystery to this day. Belle Gunness, the Lady of the Farm, serves as a chilling reminder that evil can lurk beneath the most unassuming facades. Our exploration of history's dark side returns to the horrors of Nazi Germany, where amidst the depravity of the concentration camps, Ilse Koch earned a reputation for her sadism and cruelty. Married to Karl Otto Koch, the commandant of Buchenwald concentration camp, Ilse reveled in her position of power, inflicting unimaginable suffering on the prisoners under her watch. Nicknamed the Bitch of Buchenwald, Koch seemed to take a perverse pleasure in the suffering of others. She would ride her horse through the camp, whipping prisoners at random, her laughter echoing through the air. Her cruelty extended beyond physical abuse. She was known to select prisoners with interesting tattoos, ordering their execution so that their skin could be made into gruesome souvenirs. Koch's reign of terror, fueled by her own sadistic desires and her husband's enabling, cast a long shadow over Buchenwald. Her actions, driven by a chilling blend of boredom, power, and depravity, shocked even seasoned SS officers. However, her reign of terror would not go unpunished. In 1945, as the Allied forces closed in on Buchenwald, Ilse and Karl Otto Koch were arrested. While Karl Otto was executed by the SS for corruption, Ilse faced trial for war crimes. Sentenced to life in prison, Ilse Koch took her own life in 1967, ending a life marked by unspeakable cruelty and leaving behind a legacy of horror. From the battlefields of World War II, we shift our focus to post-war England, where a chilling case of child murder gripped the nation. Myra Hindley, along with her partner Ian Brady, became synonymous with the Moors murders, a series of horrific crimes that shocked the nation with their brutality and depravity. Hindley, a seemingly ordinary young woman, fell under the spell of the sadistic and controlling Ian Brady. Together, they embarked on a killing spree that targeted children in the Manchester area. Between 1963 and 1965, they tortured and murdered 5 children, burying their bodies on Saddleworth Moor, a desolate expanse of land outside the city. The case sent shockwaves through Britain, as the details of the murders revealed during their trial in 1966 were too horrific for many to comprehend. Hindley's cold demeanor and apparent lack of remorse only added to the public's outrage. She was dubbed the most evil woman in Britain and became a figure of revulsion. Despite numerous appeals and campaigns for her release, Hindley remained imprisoned until her death in 2002. Her case, marked by its brutality and the haunting images of the victims, continues to cast a long shadow over Britain, a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. We return to the world of royal courts, this time to 15th century Spain, where Queen Isabella I of Castile reigned alongside her husband, King Ferdinand II of Aragon. Isabella, a devout Catholic monarch, played a pivotal role in the Spanish Inquisition, a period marked by religious persecution and the forced conversion or expulsion of Jews and Muslims. Driven by a desire for religious unity and a belief that she was acting on God's will, Isabella sanctioned the establishment of the Spanish Inquisition in 1478. This institution, tasked with rooting out heresy, unleashed a reign of terror on Jews and Muslims living in Spain. Those who refused to convert to Catholicism faced torture, imprisonment, and even death. The Spanish Inquisition, with Isabella's blessing, cast a long shadow over Spain, leading to the expulsion of thousands of Jews and Muslims and creating a climate of fear and intolerance. While Isabella's reign also saw the unification of Spain and the dawn of the Spanish Golden Age, her role in the Inquisition continues to be a source of controversy. History remembers Isabella as a complex and often contradictory figure, a shrewd ruler, a devout Catholic, and a queen who played a key role in one of the darkest chapters of religious persecution. Her story reminds us that even the most celebrated historical figures can be responsible for acts that continue to spark debate and condemnation centuries later. Our journey through the annals of history concludes in the American heartland during the tumultuous years of the Great Depression. While Bonnie and Clyde captured the public's imagination with their romanticized crime spree, Ma Barker and her gang of outlaws carved a path of violence and terror across the Midwest. Arizona Donnie Barker, known as Ma to her sons and the world, became a fearsome figure in the criminal underworld. She raised her sons on a steady diet of lawlessness, instilling in them a disregard for authority and a willingness to use violence to get what they wanted. The Barker Carpus Gang, as they came to be known, terrorized banks, businesses, and even kidnapped wealthy citizens for ransom. Ma Barker, despite never pulling the trigger herself, was the mastermind behind the gang's operations. She planned their heists, provided them with alibis, and instilled in them a chilling ruthlessness that made them one of the most feared gangs of the era. Their reign of terror, however, would eventually come to an end. In 1935, after a series of high-profile robberies and kidnappings, the FBI tracked Ma Barker and her son Fred to a hideout in Florida. A shootout ensued, leaving Ma and Fred dead. While her sons met violent ends, Ma Barker's legacy as a ruthless criminal mastermind and a mother who raised her children for a life of crime continues to fascinate and horrify. From queens to outlaws, these women have etched their names in history, not for their benevolence, but for their notoriety. Their stories, often brutal and unsettling, offer a glimpse into the darker side of human nature, where ambition, power, and cruelty intertwine. Remember to subscribe for more intriguing tales from history.